Hello, you multi, mongrel moggies, meddling and moments memorable. Okay, thank you. To Nordex Nossex, right, Joe. Nordex Nossex. That's what it is. That is what it is. For the malt mention, I'm Ralphie, welcome to the Bothy. We've now had a malt mention and I can get stuck in to Ralphie Review 942, where I am starting what's called an intermittent season, where I'll review an official bottling from a distillery and then I'll review an unofficial bottling from an independent bottler, because I feel at this stage you really want to know more about them, because there's more of them appearing, and importantly there's more of the independent bottlers starting to export outside of Britain and the UK to other countries. This, I believe, is a very healthy and positive development for Scotch whisky, because it raises the variety and options as regards Scotch whisky to a more international market, wherever you happen to be, malt mates. And importantly, it gives you access to extra flavours and tastes, characteristics, sensations and forms of whisky. So that if you're at that moment in your journey where you've tried quite a number of the proprietary basic Scotch whisky bottlings and now you're spending a bit more money and you're getting past the widely available main brands like Glenfiddich, Macallan, Glenlivet, Glendronach, and another one would be Great Big Distillery, widely available. Auchentoshan, that'll do fine. Loch will do fine. It's widely available. You'll be starting to wonder about what else is available that is going to excite your palate as your palate becomes familiar and established with existing homogeneous presentations of single malts, usually bottled at 40 or 43%, chill filtered and with some added colourant in the form of burnt scorched sugar. And this is the sort of whisky you might see. This is a new independent bottler. So I'm taking this opportunity to introduce it to you. The only reason I bought it, because I asked around, I checked up in my usual checks and decided this was going to be a good whisky worth buying. And I'm not disappointed. It is. Excuse me, I just want to check if I've put my sound on. I'm now doubting whether I have put my sound on. You see, if I just stop recording, I've wasted about 5 minutes of introducing this review. Whereas if I just get up and check behind the camera, I'll know for sure. Could you give me a minute? The whiskey's not going anywhere. We're all good. We're fine. We're recording. Sound is on. This is an independent bottler called Simply Whisky, and they have a small selection of single malt whiskies, but they're probably going to be ramping up in terms of volume like most independent bottlers are at the moment. You have the widely available independent bottlers like Gordon and MacPhail. Good example. And then you have small independent bottlers who are establishing and growing successfully, like for example North Star. And now you have the really small independent bottlers who are just getting started, and they want to make a good impression. They want us to notice them. They want us to see they're there. What's the best way of doing that? Because they don't have a big marketing department. They let the whisky do the marketing for them. The quality of the smell, the quality of the taste. This is a bottling of Blair Athol single malt whisky. Get me steampunker now for the little writing. And it has been distilled in 2010, bottled in 2021. The cask is a refill hogshead, and I'll give you the code for reference. It is number 302317. So it's a single cask, even better, because with single cask whiskies, you get the singularity of the cask. And it's amazing how they vary and how beautiful they can be. Natural colour and cask strength. Wonderful. The strength is 51.6%. Interestingly, on the label at the bottom right hand side, they actually give you, they state if you have any questions, you can call us on, and they give the phone number. And they also give an email, info@simplywhiskey.com. So they're actually inviting you to contact them directly on the label. This is unusual. This is very unusual for any distillery or any independent bottler to actually just literally give direct contact details. So we'll see how long that one lasts. But in the meantime, very commendable, because if you actually want to know about the whiskey, if you want to speak to the person who actually stood looking at the cask and has been actively involved in getting it bottled, the owners and proprietors of small independent bottlers, these are the very people to actually interact with, because you're not going through any departments. You're speaking to a very small team who are very directly hands-on involved in the presentation of the whisky to the market. And this is another advantage of small independent bottlers, and even medium-sized independent bottlers, is that it doesn't take you long to get straight in touch with someone who has got a complete overview picture of where the business is at. Anything else I'd like to add at the moment? So a wee bit of flannel in the back. They're saying we are forever in search of great tasting whisky. Well, I tell you what, aren't we all? And it gives you a QR code in the back. More labels should have QR codes. Get the mobile out. Rightio. Now I know all about it. So, the brand is called Simply Whiskey. It's Blair Athol. It's a whisky I would never dream of buying as an official bottling, because it's just bland to my palate. It's just boring. Light. It's a Highland whisky. Blair Athol is located in Pitlochry, in the centre of Scotland, just on the main trunk road called the A9 that goes from Perth up to Inverness. It's a mid-Highland distillery, and it's one of the lightest of the Highland distilleries in terms of character. So if this distillery was music, for example, it would be ambient music. It would be a sort of gentle coffee house type music. So it wouldn't be heavy metal like Laphroaig, and it wouldn't be hard rock like Glenfarclas. This is a much gentler style of single malt. And the thing about that is it behaves rather like the lowland malts. When you have something that's gentle, it's not devoid of flavour. It's just that the flavours are presented more slowly, more softly and more subtly. And that is where the beauty of these styles of Scotch single malt come in, because they're beautifully, if done properly, they're beautifully understated, and this delivers complexity, particularly in the development, particularly in the finish. So let's get stuck in now. Slightly sweet and sour. We're getting a slight raisiny or soft sherry note. It's toffeed, it's butterscotch, it's soft, a little bit muscovado, and sultana. It's gentle. We've already been given a clue by the disclosure that we're getting on the label that it's a refill hogshead. Being a refill rather than a first fill You won't get the sherry notes crowding the single malt. And over time, there's more of a balance between the two. In this bottling, it's 11 years old, and it's absolutely perfect. Off to a very good start. Slightly tangy, slightly spicy, and cough mixturey. First taste, intense. Big cask strength arrival, but delivering a soft, I mean, you could drink this neat if you wanted, not that I recommend it, but it's restrained. You're saying, the flavour's really quiet. The flavour's sort of hiding in the corner. And this is where the addition of water comes in, because different single malts respond differently to the addition of water. Full teaspoon. So I've added 50 millilitres of water. This is a 5 cl teaspoon. As soon as you add the water, because it's a relatively young whisky and because it's cask strength, it starts to move quite quickly in softening up. But even as the alcohol is suppressed, the flavour starts to build because the flavour is being physically released from the chemical bonds of the ethanol, the alcohol that's in the spirit. Wonderfully crisp, wonderfully clear. Total evidence of a really decent, clean, active and sympathetic cask. Becomes a little bit fruitier. It's a little mild pear, baked apple, a little bit of cinnamon and cardamom in the background. The spices are soft, subdued, but they're growing a little bit in volume, interacting with the rest of the flavours in this. Just a hint, a tiny hint of smoke on the nose, but not a lot. Having added the water, you're getting a lovely sweet and sour note. More predominantly barley sugar, vanilla's coming through. It's starting to grow in the development. After the arrival, you have the development before the finish. It's starting to grow in the development. And when you leave this whisky in the glass for a good 20 minutes, because you need to be patient with it, what you'll find is that in the finish, it suddenly develops an unexpected complexity. There's a slight cologne note, a floral note, a delicate note which you don't even expect to see coming. But such is the calibre of the cask interaction, and the quality of the spirit's really, really good. And as I mentioned earlier, it's nothing like official bottlings. This is very different. This is Blair Athol that's been kind of been released from the constraints of big batching, and the singularity of that single cask is allowed to really, really show. And as it does, it really showcases actually what the malt is capable of. And it's a delightful, intense, but soft flavoured, delicate, unpeated single malt. One more taste before I give the malt mark. That's coming through now. Slight marzipan note. Marzipan, vanilla, slightly honey. I don't know if you've ever bought one of these German marzipan bars that's coated in dark chocolate. And if you pick the dark chocolate off and you have this really kind of wet, flavoursome marzipan that's kind of granular inside, you can buy them Lidl and Aldi's and they're really absolutely delicious, which is why I never buy more than one bar at a time. because there's a huge amount of calories in them, but they're absolutely fantastic. I'm getting a little note of that in this Blair Athol. And the form is just, there's no rush. It's soft, it's gentle, understated, shy, coy, unassuming, unadventurous. And many whiskies are not. So you're getting a genuinely different style of single malt, which is amplified and endorsed by the fact that it's coming from one single cask, which is absolutely showcasing what this signature from Blair Athol is capable of being. It's delightful. Much slower arrival, much more languid development, rich toffee note, slightly zesty, ginger coming in, beautiful little bit of ginger heat, green ginger, sultana, and the viscosity, because it's unchill filtered. So that's delivered. Do you know that the viscosity of the whiskey, because it's not been chill filtered, helps the delivery right across the tongue, because the actual liquid is denser. It's physically denser because of the vegetable oils and the long chain fatty acids and the complex proteins in it. And it's that really goes not just to deliver the flavour to your tongue, but to deliver the form as well, because the form and flavour are totally together. You can't really separate them too easily. One more taste. I'm going to have a wee drop of water, tiny wee drop more, not a lot. There we are. That was about a dozen drops, done rather quickly so you wouldn't notice how many there were, but it's just growing. The volume, the whole volume of it is just gradually growing and growing. No rush, steady as it goes, clean, beautiful cask, very effective maturation, gem of a single malt. Zesty, clean, crisp in the palate, changing flavours, changing form in the palate, and then that finish, that glorious finish. A little eau de cologne, a little bit of floral, a little bit of green notes in the finish, almost giving a hint of Irish redbreast whisky in the finish, but not quite. It's still definitively a Scotch. I better give this a malt mark. It's been a joy. An absolute joy. I'm giving this 89 out of 100, and that is an integrity malt mark. Wonderful. Now, I want to conclude by saying that this is a small independent bottler called Simply Whisky, 11-year-old single malt, from one cask, and they had a total of 265 bottles. So not a lot of bottles out there, and you're going to say to yourself, Ralphie, you're reviewing a whisky again that we can't buy. You can probably still buy this in the UK, but the reason I'm reviewing it is to make it visible, make it noticeable, make you aware that these bottlings exist, and you never know when the moment you walk into a small independent retailer that suddenly you'll see bottles like this up on the shelf, and then what do? Do you get cold feet and say, right, I don't want to take the risk because there's no reviews online to give me reference? Because I'm one of the few reviewers that goes into these obscure bottlings. But the more reviews there are and more online, over time, the more the points of reference and the more you can buy with confidence these small independent bottlings. You will not find them in travel retails. You won't find them in supermarkets. You're unlikely to find them in Amazon. You will find them on the specialist retailer, whether online or on the high street. And it's important that we keep these shops going because they provide variety. Small retailers are not afraid of small contracts with small bottlers. It's their bread and butter. It means they can offer whiskies that other bigger, much more consolidated and centralised whisky retailers cannot and will not do because it's too much hassle. This is why I'm reviewing it. And in fact, if you pop back again for Ralphie Review 942 Extras, I'll be going a bit further and I'll be explaining the importance for small retailers to have these bottlings. Because there is most certainly a growing awareness and a growing market internationally for the small independent bottlers who will grow because they'll have the revenue and the turnover. All they have to do is be careful about their prices, offer simple packaging, totally unpretentious, no marketing, no non-fungible tokens, no NFTs, no selling a cask for millions, no comics getting printed, none of that bullshit. Yeah, I'm just calling it for what it is. It's bullshit. It doesn't stick with Scotch whisky. Scotch whisky is a product that you grow towards rather than it getting thrust at you by lifestyle designers and commentators. I'm Ralphie. Hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, subscribe and click like and go and check my Patreon channel. Patreon/Ralphie. R-A-L-F-Y. That's where you'll find me providing extra content over and above what I do publicly on YouTube. There you go. Now you know. And one final thing. Please go to the OSWAs, oswa.co.uk, and do so fairly soon because we are launching the 2022 online Scotch Whisky Awards campaign, and we'll be looking for your contribution, your votes on the categories with a short list of 6 finalists as nominated across the whisky scene by commentators both online and offline as well. Yeah. Thanks, malt mates. Appreciate you.